Hello, everyone. Welcome to Dallaville Podcast, episode 104. This week, of course, we're going to be back to our normal recording schedule, um, but we want to just catch up how we've been doing, plus talk about foreign horror movies. So, guys, let's talk about how was Halloween? Did you get any trick-or-treaters? I know that me and Dad said no. Colin said no, but David was talking about that he had a couple people come by.
A couple,
Well,
dude. I was worried because of the rain coming through, right?
hmm
Because the wife went and bought a ton of candy. I mean, a ton of candy. So I was a little worried that, I was going to be having diabetes. My New Year's resolution was going to be going and
Yeah.
getting Liberty Mutual and all that so I can get my diabetes testing supplies. But thankfully, yeah, no, man, we had tons and tons of people showing up. I mean, loads of people. Although about a quarter of them, you could kind of tell were of the older sort. It was like, come on, dude, you're in like jeans, a hoodie, and you have a pillowcase, and you have more facial hair than I do. What are you doing out here? But no, I mean but outside of that, we had a pretty good spread of kids and all
hmm
sorts. So I mean, it didn't even start clearing up until maybe 9:30. So
Oh,
Oh
from
wow,
yeah.
oh,
man.
yeah.
See, I can't say I didn't have any kids because I wasn't here. I
Yeah.
went to go trick or treating with my granddaughter, and it was really slow at first. There weren't a whole lot of kids out, and then all of a sudden, about almost 8:30, 8:45, they were like coming out of the ground and out of the shadows, and all of a sudden the streets were full of them. Um, but I know what you mean because as we were walking and I was walking with her, I'd have to stop a little bit because of my leg and everything. But Brock was there if I needed to sit down in the car. And it was
Mhm.
great. It was just all of us together. We were doing, and Logan, of course, now a young adult. It's too big to trick or treat with his old grandpa. So he was off with his buds. Um, but Alice filled up a big sleeping bag. I mean, there was so much candy she couldn't carry it anymore. And
Wow.
so
Sleeping
we
bag?
had her just go up with like a little basket
Sleeping
and
bag
just
or
come back and
pillowcase?
jump it. No, a pillowcase. Oh, did I say sleeping bag?
You
Yeah, you
said
said
sleeping
sleeping.
Pillowcase.
bag.
Yeah, we're
That's
all
all I
about
Oh
to
was
no,
say,
no.
thinking.
Oh,
holy
wow,
crap,
yeah.
man.
If
I,
she
I
had
can
done
just,
that, I would be dead already. No, it was a big pillowcase. It was like one of those wide ones. You know how like there's short pillowcases, but then there's the long one for the long pillow.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, she filled that up, and
The
but what
Dai
was
Katana.
great, what was great was the sheer costumes that were out there. Of course, there were Beetlejuice. He was the number one costume this year, and but there were a lot. And there was this guy who was obviously was with his girlfriend, and he was dressed as Scooby, and she was dressed as Velma, and they were loving on each other and kissing each other. And I kept laughing every time we passed them. And I was like, am I the only one catching on to this?
Weird,
Is
Yeah.
am
weird
I that
situation.
weird,
Yeah.
weird headed? But
Yes.
there were
Poor
just so many
Shaggy, right? Poor
more
Shaggy.
more well, there was a Shaggy. We saw him later with some Daphne and a
Fred?
Fred. Yeah,
Mhm.
and it was funny. I was like, oh, okay. They should have had a friend who's short, dressed up as Scrappy,
Oh my
so
gosh, that
that
is hilarious.
And I was like, where are they? Because we passed them on two different blocks, and we're like, where are they? I want to see them when they meet. Just want to see them hook up, but they never did. They went two different directions.
Uh,
But just the sheer animatronics, man, it was like going to Disney World.
Dude, there was a house around the corner from us that I swear to God, all they did was they walked into Spirit of Halloween and they said, "I'll take one," and
of
then the
Of
everything.
person
everything.
was like, one of what?" And then yeah, everything. Because man, they must have had 8 or 9 animatronic, not the like little bitty rinky dink ones. I mean like the big full size like Witch and Wolfman and all that stuff. It was nuts.
We went by this one house who had all of the old Universal monsters. There was Frankenstein, there was Dracula, the Wolfman, and I was like, man, everybody's here. They even had the Frankenstein's wife, and I was like, no Creature of the Black Lagoon. Why can't he get some love? We needed somebody to bring out the Creature of the Black Lagoon. We didn't get him. I'm heartbroken.
Well, I mean, none of the houses on our street or around us decorated for Halloween, which kind of sucked. Usually the staples that we know that are around us that do that didn't do it this year. Um, that's awesome, David. And it it doesn't help that the superintendent of HISD is a complete jerk and has canceled Halloween for middle school to high school students. They
For
can't have
next year.
they can't be giving out candy. You can't have any Halloween parties. You can't even dress up at school. It's a distraction. And like this guy has no attachment to reality whatsoever.
Oh
Like,
yeah, he does because he's funneling money out of HISD to somebody a school district in Colorado that he used to work for.
oh yeah, yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah. But and it's just like Anna dressed up as Totoro and Edward went as Naruto again. And he had a good time at school, but when he came home, he was just like, I'm tired. I don't want to go. I just want to chill with you guys. And then we we had candy. We had tons of candy that she brought home. We bought some candy and we had no kids. None of them. Nobody came by. Like we didn't even hear like the
wow.
normal trucks that of people getting out to go to knock on the doors. But it's just so weird that like we're losing something, a holiday that's part of Americana and it's been around for forever. And I
I
wonder
don't
if like,
I don't know if I agree with that. I think there are areas that have been taken over and is trying to be driven out. But there are some strongholds of Halloween in this country
mhm,
still. Um, but they're being replaced with trunk or treat and all these parts. Because like when we were walking around, we passed at least two churches who had their parking lots full of trunk or
yeah,
treaters.
decorator cars and
Where they
yeah.
had cars and all that, and they were handing out
Hmm.
candy out of their trunk. Um, when we were walking around, we saw this one street, and it was totally lit up with decorations on both sides, all the way down. We were gonna head down there, but then we realized at the end where we thought there was like a party going on.
Hmm.
There was a fire truck, an ambulance, and a police officer, and all their lights were going at the end of the street. We are like, that looked like it was a fun street, but we can't go down there because we don't know what happened. Um, and that was really sad because it looked like everybody on that street put in a lot of work. Because sometimes, like at Christmas and Halloween, neighborhoods get together and create themes. And
Hmm.
that's what that looked like. They had done a theme and something happened that probably ruined it for a lot of people. But we were seeing tour. I was like, man, I can make some money on this next year. People have bought these. They look like golf carts, but they're extended. You can fit
Hmm.
about 6 or 8 people on them,
Oh
and
yeah, they got them up.
they were driving
Bus them
around
around.
taking
Yeah.
kids, people trick or treating. I was like, man, whoever can afford one of those, you could make some money at Halloween here, just because
Hmm.
of the sheer number of kids walking on the street and parents going, I can't walk anymore.
So Colin, what was
Yeah.
it like in your area? I know you didn't get any trick or treaters, but did you see
Um,
any places that
oh
were
no, there
decorating?
was a lot. We had a lot of people. Just I ended up spending the evening at church because we just had regular service. But
Hmm.
no, all through town was crazy for hours. It was like, it's like, oh, it's a nice night and people are going to get out, and they did. And there were a lot of costumes and a lot of elaborate costumes this year. So, I mean, it was
And
nice
it
to
amazed
see
me
some
how
activity.
many were out after 9:30,
Oh
on
yeah,
school night. You would think, oh, the parents would shut them down, but
Hmm.
you
yeah.
know,
No, here in town, they did staff development day, so they were able to stay out late and then not have to get up. The
Oh,
teachers
nice.
came in for staff development, but the kids had the day off afterwards.
See, and that's what's good when like the schools know what's going on and they do that for the kids and stuff. And because they know they're going to be out, they're going to be with family, they're going to have a good time, and not have to worry about going back to school for a day just because you know they understand. It's a difference when you're so detached from reality that you make or impose these things that are unrealistic.
I mean, or you
Um,
and
just
you
have a day
can't.
job.
Well, and they can't make it go away because Day of the Dead lasts to the 2nd of November.
yeah, I think so.
It's almost a week long, and so in that there are communities that are some of them, like, instead of decorations, were putting up the altars and the places outside so that they could celebrate their families. I know that at least two communities I was reading about were setting up the where their families are buried in their cemeteries, family cemeteries and stuff like that. So they'd bring in food and they'd be communing with their families,
Mhm.
even if they're lost ones. And then there are groups of people, organizations who go around and celebrate those who are in danger of being forgotten. People who might all their family might be dead and nobody
Yeah.
celebrates their memory anymore. They come in and do that for them. So, and that's a cultural thing. That's something you can't, get rid of. And so,
Well, you
it would
can't,
be
but I
horrible
mean, oh, it
to
would
see
be.
all
Yeah.
that go away.
By the time I got home and Edward didn't want to go anywhere, I was like, well, I need to work on this episode for Halloween. And man, I had so many issues with Filmora trying to edit it and put everything right. I still had like some errors in it that I didn't wasn't happy about, but it came out very well, and I'm glad people received it very well. It's just hopefully next year we'll have more submissions and stuff because I enjoy doing this.
Well, I tried to get you.
Oh, I know, I
Is he
know.
okay?
Yeah, I understand. I mean, there was
It should
all
not just.
circumstances that were going on that made it difficult for people to submit stuff. I had other friends that
Yeah.
I had reached out to that wanted to do things that they weren't able to. But they said they want to do something next year maybe. So, um,
I'll bring a flash drive up here and I'll give it to you. I didn't realize that I was going to have problems because it was a 10 meg video.
well, I still need to sit down with you and record the other story. Not at your home, so we're not drawing attention to it. But
You're gonna make me talk about that, aren't you?
yeah, I'm gonna
You're
make.
not gonna
I
let it go.
briefly kind of talked about it on mine with all the weird stuff that we had happen, especially stuff with me because I hadn't actually talked about that a whole lot with the any of the podcasts in the past. But you guys been watching anything lately besides the in preparation with the horror season and anything new?
I've been watching Penguin, which is fantastic. And I'm gonna have to give Disney a little Marvel a little praise because Agatha All Along was fantastic, and when they hit it out of the park in the end, um,
I haven't seen
I
it
was
yet.
just in love with it. They made sure they brought in a lot of witch lore so that if somebody is into that, they're not going to pick it to pieces because whoever wrote it had their knowledge and lore of the characters and everything. So it was fantastic.
So
And
my
then of
question
course
would be, go ahead. What?
just other stuff that was on for the season.
Well, did they introduce Mephisto or anything like that, or anybody?
No, they
No,
set him up.
please, no spoilers.
Okay, we won't say. I won't say anything.
I'm going to binge it.
Yeah.
You're gonna mention. Okay, okay.
I'm going to.
Oh, it's over. So
I was waiting
to
for the last
binging.
episode. I'm going to binge. So by the next one, I will have it all in my belt.
Maybe we can do a review episode at some point. Um, yeah, what was it? I watched. There's new anime that's on Netflix called Dan or something like that.
Yeah, I
Oh,
just saw the
Yeah,
trailer
it's
for that.
Kyle was
oh,
talking about that.
it is great
very,
and hilarious.
I'm very curious about that.
Yeah, it's basically about these two unlikely kids in high school that become friends. One is believes in the in ghosts and things, and the other one is big into aliens. And they both get tested and actually meet the things that they don't believe in, and it brings them together to fight different things. It's great. It's over the top, but it's great. And it's dubbed too, so it's definitely worth a watch. There's 5 episodes out right now. They've been doing them. They're not releasing it as a whole series. They're doing every Wednesday release a new episode. It's kind of what they've been doing a lot with the anime lately on Netflix.
Yeah.
Because even like Dragon Ball Dharma, which I haven't watched yet. I'm actually waiting for the English dub. So
Yeah, because I started trying, but I'm just not going to sit.
there's a
there
lot
trying
of
to
stuff
read
that
all
drops
stuff.
at the beginning. There's just the beginning of that episode and stuff to set up what goes on. But I'm looking forward to it since it's Akira Toriyama's last work, and he put a lot of heart into this. So it's definitely something I want to watch. You know, it's going to go to theaters, right? You can go watch the first three episodes dubbed in English and in the theater. So like
Oh
I
no, I
think
hadn't
it's
heard
like
about
the
that.
9th,
I'll
10th, and
wait.
11th
I'll wait, and that way I could just watch,
at home and not have to worry about
everything at home.
anybody.
Yeah.
Pay
I'm
for the
surprised
gas to
they
go.
I'm surprised they didn't release the dub, in tandem with the sub.
That's what I thought too. I mean,
No, they don't. I have like Netflix isn't doing that very much. Hulu isn't doing that. Crunchyroll isn't doing that.
Well, I mean,
They released the
certain anime.
subbed.
I mean, certain anime I get, but like Dragon Ball, when you
yeah,
have these already well established voice actors, and there's so many people that dubbing is, their version of the anime and it has always been their version. It just seemed kind of wild to me that they wouldn't, again, simul release a dub and sub version, but
they have done it before. It just depends because like even Trigun, well, the Stampede was I think a week apart. So you'd get the Japanese subtitle version and then the dub literally the next day, next week.
Well, like Bleach, the Thousand Year War, it was every when they would release three subbed, and then on the fourth episode of the sub, you'd also get like the first three of the dubbed,
Mhm.
and it was always off. And what was wild was that for a while in Hulu, you could just go into one space and then set it. I mean, it was there. You could just pick the language you wanted to use. But now it's two different like streams in it. You got to go to either the sub or you got to go to the dubbed. So you can't just look and say, "Oh, it's subbed," because it might be hidden somewhere else and it's actually dubbed.
it's
Mhm.
kind of
Um,
like back whenever I tried watching Fairy Tale on Hulu back in the day. I would be watching along, and all of a sudden it was like just a chunk of episodes would disappear. I'd be like on episode, 82, and then all of a sudden I'm like, whoa, like who are these characters? What's going on? And I would look, and it's like, oh, it's episode like 95, and I'd go and look through the episode list, and what it had done is all of it was clumped together, but there was like a section of episodes that didn't have dubs or didn't have subs to them. And so
Mhm.
if you were watching the dub, it would automatically throw you into the next episode. But if there wasn't another episode of that particular set to throw you into, it would just skip you ahead to wherever the next iteration of that like
right.
language version of
Yeah,
it
yeah.
is. So it was very confusing and frustrating once I like figured out what was going on, I was like, okay, I guess we're gonna either give it time to see if they can, put
Figure
back
it
up
out.
the languages, or we might just kind of it's either that, figure out whenever we're about to miss an episode and make sure we watch the other iteration, or just give up on this thing altogether and move on to something else.
Hmm. Well, because Ramen One Half just got the retelling of the original series with the new animation. Just premiered on Netflix as well, and it was in English dub. So it just gets just hit and miss depending on the studio.
and
Yeah.
and then I watched Sandland, which because of you playing the game, I went and found it and watched it, and then started trying to watch the what's her name, Laura Croft, and I can watch two episodes and then I'm just okay. I'll take a break from it. It's not something to me that makes me want to stream it. I mean, not stream it, but binge
No,
it.
I've heard a lot of bad things from the show.
I,
From the
it's
character design, the direction of how the path is going with the story, it doesn't feel like the people that wrote this actually had played the original games or anything.
well, it's based on a comic that came out. Or yeah, I think it was a comic, and so
Hmm.
I've never read that comic, so I don't
Yeah,
know what
I
to
don't know.
compare it to. Only the games,
Hmm.
and so
Well, because it doesn't even follow, from what I understand, it doesn't follow the path of the remakes, the three games that we got.
no, it's a whole new retelling of the story, but it takes place in between certain events in the games. But it also had a comic adaptation that
Hmm.
they were following. Um,
But yeah,
Well, on the topic of anime, I watched the 4 episodes of Uzumaki.
ooh,
I was
okay.
yeah,
What was
I
that?
is it. I started it. I was like, I can't do this. I can't do this.
it has officially messed up my ability to look at slugs. 100%. Like now, I look at slugs and it does something to my mind. Now I can't deal with slugs and snails. The first episode is really, really good. I mean, if you've been online at all and been listening to any of the discourse, then you know the first episode is amazing. Like the animation style is really, really unique. It's really cool to see, I mean, it looks like a black and white manga that they've just put in motion, and it's
Hmm.
fantastic. And they make all these cool little choices about how to interpret a still image into something in motion, right? Instead of them just showing like whenever something freaky happens, instead of just showing like a static image of it as you would see in the manga, they try to give it motion. They try to like get you to understand what that would look
So
like in terms of the story.
so when
Um,
they do the city, where you see the walls of the city turning into the spot, have they gotten that far?
oh yeah, no. So the show's only 4 episodes, which is unfortunate because one of the things that uh it suffers is the fact that the pacing becomes absolutely atrocious. Like it just goes breakneck speed out of no like it just you're just going, right? You're just powering through stuff. There are some storylines and story bits where you just kind of like you blink and it's there and
So
gone. And
it's there and gone.
stuff just shows up sometimes, and you got to try and remember like what the hell, where did this come from? What is even going on? What is happening? And then it just kind of keep it just you just got to keep going with it. And so in terms of storyline wise, man, it is a pacing nightmare. It is busted, but and then the second, I think there's a lot of people that complained about the animation post the first episode. I think it's at its worst in the second episode. The second episode is rough. There are some animation moments in it that look janky, that look just broken and unfinished, and it's unfortunate because the third episode has a lot of really good animation, and the fourth episode is like back to mostly good, but there's still some jank moments in it. But I mean, overall, it got me interested in, I had never read Junji Ito before, but it got me interested in reading the manga. And like I said, just like some of the visuals and some of the things that happen in it are like horrifying. And so
Hmm.
in
Well,
that
and I
sense, it
felt that
was,
way from the original film. That is always in my head. It wasn't animated; it was live action,
The
and
live action
just
film.
that bothered me. And so I start feeling those same feelings I had then with this, and I know about the manga. I know what happens in it. Um, and
so
there's a
they,
lot of story here. I'm just, how do you
yes.
tell the entire story in 4 episodes?
You don't. You truncate a ton of it, and
You,
then
or
they
you
move.
break it into little bitty vignettes. I don't know. I haven't watched it yet, so but
Yeah, I mean the manga itself is almost like vignettes, right? It's almost like a horror show of the week type thing. It's like, okay, and
Yes.
and this week we're dealing with, a person whose head is caving into itself and devouring people. And now this week we're going to deal with like weird babies that umbilical cords turn into these crazy blood mushrooms, and there's a surgeon that's re-implanting the fetuses back into their mothers and like crap like that. It's just like thing after thing after thing, and it's just coming at you, at the speed of light. And it's crazy, but I mean, there's so much insanity, and I think almost it was almost to the point where my mind was basically accepting that it was a series of short stories rather
hmm.
than a single overall narrative. And I think that like once my brain clicked into that mode, I was more accepting of stuff that was on screen because it was so interesting and so horrifying of what was happening that
The-
like just the concepts were enough that I was pulled in and I was interested to see where it was going. And then
and so
once,
they showed the people eating the other people who were turning into the
into
snails.
snails. Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Okay.
no. So I mean,
And what about
they get all the way to the end. I mean, you get all the way to where the city has transformed. They go down
transformed? Yeah,
underground.
into the ground,
Uh,
into the
yeah.
subway.
So I mean, they cover tons of ground. They get like all the high points, right,
Yeah,
of the story,
and
and
they
they even
explain the curse.
as best as it can be explained. Sure.
Within the window of four episodes. How long are the episodes?
Man, I don't remember. Yeah, I'd have to go back and look. I don't remember how long the episodes were. Like I said, pacing is awful.
Mhm.
Pacing is terrible in it. So they could have been an hour and a half long between them, and I don't even know if they would have been able to really get everything in there. But I mean, when they're on a story beat, they do good. It's just you get whiplash going from, you know, one story to the next. And I haven't read through all the manga, so I don't know if the manga just kind of gets to a point where it does that, where it's snapping you to the next thing. Because, if I were
It's
sit
multiple stories going
right,
on
yeah,
at
yeah.
the same time, but then there's a
Yeah.
gap in time too, a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's
Several,
after
I think,
they've
if
been
I
trapped
remember
in
right.
they're trapped in the town officially, and the spiral won't let them
Towns,
leave,
yeah.
and all that's going crazy, and they don't
And,
have food anymore, and all the rest of it. Yeah, they actually
well,
cover
and then
that,
the government tries to come in and rescue them, can't,
and they
and all
get
this other stuff.
destroyed, and
They
yeah, yeah.
get, yeah.
You watch all the
Um,
battleships on the off the coast get swirled into the ocean, and then there's like a weird time dilation thing because they wander off into the forest, and by the time they come back out of the forest, everyone that's in the city has apparently been there for
Yes.
years, as
yeah,
far as
that's
they
when
can
they try
tell.
to
So
escape. They try to
yeah,
walk out and they come
yeah,
back in.
yeah. So
Um,
I mean, it's like I said, I would
to
say
me,
for all the problems that it has, I would still say it's worth a watch because, like I
so
said,
you're saying it, for all the problems, it still hits more than it misses.
if I think it does because again, the conceptual horror that is being shown to you on the screen when you're thinking about the kind of stuff that is happening to these people that they're going through, that they're doing to each other and doing to themselves, and like and all this madness, it's so incredibly interesting that yeah, if you don't know anything about Junji Ito, if you've never seen any of his other works, then go in and watch it. Understand that it is going to be flinging stuff at you at breakneck speed. After the first episode, there's some moments where the animation is going to look like ass. I mean, it's bad. It's really really bad. I cannot stress to you
Does it
how
seem like it was
awful.
rushed and they didn't
Yes.
get to finish it
Yeah, no,
just to meet a deadline?
there's literally a part where um there are these two kids that are running, it's like a Romeo and Juliet type thing, and they're running away from each other, they're running away from their families, and they meet up on the beach and they entwine into this snake thing, and the
Mhm.
snake thing goes off into the ocean. Well, whenever it goes off into the ocean, it's like someone just kind of took it, and there's like a layer, right? That is the ocean, and then they just took the thing and just kind of like with a mouse wiggled it under that layer, and there's no sensation of the water parting as it goes into it, and then you just kind of like see it go like stick up out of the water and just go and then go back down. It's awful. It's terrible. But if you go into it understanding that at the end of the day there's a lot of rushed aspects to it, I think that the if you think of it more of a little bitty short story type things instead of trying to pay attention to like an overall narrative, there's a lot of really, really cool stuff in it.
Yeah, I definitely want to pick up the manga and stuff, so I'll give the anime a try.
So is it a I mean, it's kind of a cerebral horror. It's not straight up horror. It to me it's kind of, there's a lot of mental things that are going on here and a lot of,
I
you
mean,
trying to figure out.
but it's a lot of body horror. I mean, a
There,
lot
no,
of
yeah,
body horror.
basically it is a
Holy
body
Lord.
horror. But
But
even body horror can be cerebral, because there's
sure,
body
yeah.
horror like the one where the rich people are the horrible looking things. There's Arseface, dude.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, and then there is those that make you question your own reality.
mhm.
Yeah,
Um,
and that's and yeah, so it's like Silent Hill, right? Where all the monsters are manifestations of like
The
trauma and suppressed feelings and all that stuff, right? That feels like what this feels like that, where it's all of the awful things that are happening to people are kind of reflections of, them in a lot of
Mhm.
ways. So it's definitely leans into that. But on the topic of like cerebral horror and all that, I watched two movies, or I watched one movie and I watched about 80% of another movie, and then I had to tap out on it because I just didn't care anymore. Was We're All Going to the World's Fair, and I saw the TV Glow. And I had heard great things about both of those movies. And I watched the trailers for both of those movies, and they seemed really, really interesting. And then I got into We're All Going to the World's Fair because that was the first one that that director did. And I realized, and I got to the end of that movie, and I realized that I had been lied to about what it was. And I didn't know how to feel about that. I I kind of didn't like it. Um, because a lot of it, it's a kid is on the internet and is fallen into like this internet game, but then there's like these aspects of, is there like evil spirits involved, and are they possessing these kids and forcing them to do evil things? And so almost the entire movie, you're seeing it from the perspective of the webcam of this kid, but then there are little parts where you follow her through her day at school and stuff like that. And so that one actually leaned into the horror aspect enough where it kept me in all the way to the end of the movie. And then you get to the end of the movie and there's a reveal at the end that, again, I don't know that I liked. It's not bad. But I saw the TV Glow. Everyone was talking about that damn movie. I mean, it
Yeah.
was everywhere. I saw stuff all about it, all over the place, and I could not make it through that movie. I was bored to tears because again, and I blame the marketing a lot, it feels like, because everyone talked about how disturbing this movie was, and you watch the trailers and it looks like it's going to be this interesting horror movie where like aspects of this TV show are going to start showing up in these kids' lives, like maybe these monstrous things will start manifesting themselves in the real world or little things like that. And none of that happens. It is basically a teen drama framed kind of around this Buffy-ish TV show. And I just could not care less, right? Like if I knew that's what it was going into it, I think I might have been more prepared and been able to kind of sit through it. But when I went into this movie thinking it's going to be horror, think there's going to be some thriller elements to it, just something, and instead all I'm getting is weepy teen drama. I couldn't make my way through it. I didn't care by the end. None of the characters grip me. Nothing about what was being done or said really interested me. And I just like I know it's all about the trans experience, and that was one of the major talking points about the movie, was that it's supposed to be a really good reflection of kind of their worldview and kind of how they struggle with identity and all that. And I can see that. It's very clear throughout the movie. It's just nothing about the story interested me. For the people that like to see that reflection and like to have that validation of themselves and all that, that's great. I just couldn't make it through the movie because nothing about it gripped any of my interest in terms of that. But yeah.
Well, and that's something I've kind of been disturbed by, is some of the bait and switch films that we've been getting lately, which are hidden political messaging and stuff like that. It's almost like sometimes people just don't know how to tell a good story with great characters that you can introduce elements to, but it's not the driving point of the movie. And then the other thing is, what is the fixation with horror movies where it's just the kids are in danger and there's nobody there to protect them, and then when you find out that there's a parent or somebody who's a guardian, they're part of it, and it's all, and there's no hope at the end, and the kids die, and then all of a sudden you find out it's going to happen again to some other kids, and I'm like, F this stuff, man. I don't watch this for that crap,
Oh no. You sound like the folks that tore up John Carpenter's The Thing back in the day of
oh no,
too
I
it's
love
too
John Carpenter's
it's
The
well,
Thing.
you say, yeah, I know, but like the way you're talking right now, it's too bleak, right? It's too bleak, it's too dark.
I just
Doesn't have
don't
a
know.
happy ending.
I don't. Well, that's not my real point. My point is I don't like torture. Period. And some of these may not show physical damage, but they're abusive to the child. And in
Yeah.
the end, the child gets killed by the boogeyman, and either the parents knew all along or set them up as the sacrifice, or maybe like one of them I watched, the dad got killed, and then the person you've been thinking is the dad all along is one of the evil entities, and you're like, okay, I don't go in for that. That's not horror to me. So we've kind of lost the, I guess, gothic horror and that kind of horror, monsters and things like that. It's just like I don't like a lot of possession movies anymore. Um, I'm not in it for the shock value. I want a good story. I love a good jump scare. I want to come out of it thinking about what happened in the film, what what I would have done in it, that kind of thing. I don't want, oh, did you see the way they cut off the head and peeled the skin off the person? That's not friggin' horror to me.
So you're
It's
not
just
a
like I
fan
had a
of
conversation.
Terrifier.
No, I am not a fan of that crazy ass clown, man. The I had a conversation with somebody the other day, and I was like, I used to like um, Rob Zombie, and I thought he had a good, kind of focus on that stuff. But I didn't really get into the House of a Thousand
Thousand
Corpses.
Corpses.
Yeah, because it was, basically a Texas Chainsaw Massacre and one of those other things. But then you get 3 other films with these guys, and just put them away because people think of them as a hero. They hero worship these frigging nut jobs. You're supposed to go into this stuff rooting for the people to make it through and survive, not root for the person who's doing the killing. And then enjoying that body count. And I'm not a prude, man. I love a good movie. I love, when there's like a bunch of shooting going on and you see like half the population of a town get shot in this big battle royale. But I want the violence to have some kind of meaning behind it. I'm just not into senseless violence for the fake of it. I mean, for the sake of it.
Wait, so because like what was it? Never mind, don't worry about it. I'll edit this out. There was a movie I had in mind, and then when Colin blinked out, I'm like, I know he was like going to do this, and it just totally my mind
He's
went.
if you notice, I don't know if you notice, he's counting the number of times he fades out. When he gets to 99, he's going to turn into the Flash and shake right off the screen.
He's going to get to make a wish.
Really quick.
When I hit 88, I'm going to disappear into the future or the past.
Well, see, that's what was that was again what was one of the weirder things about Uzumaki, and one of the reasons why I can't look at snails is because just a dude and his bully get turned into snails, and then they go and they make sweet snail love together, and then lay a bunch of snail eggs out in the middle of a forest, and their teacher gets all angry, stomps all over the snail eggs, and then next day teacher comes into class and he's turned into a snail. It's weird stuff, man.
You gotta stay away from them snail eggs,
dude. Like,
right.
what was this guy on when he was writing this, man? Like,
dude,
he got a hold of some bad escargot.
No, what's hilarious?
He got a hold of some bad
escargot. Yeah.
Well, from what I read, he was like a dentist or something before he turned into a horror manga artist. It was
like Steve Martin.
Novocaine. Yeah.
Was he hitting his own laughing gas?
He must have been. Because
it would have been yeah, Bill Murray and him.
Mama.
Junji Ito, man, he's a crazy dude.
Ride a motorcycle, wear leather.
Huh?
Maybe we should get to the main topic before this thing completely goes off the rails.
It goes off the rails. It's we're organically getting there, considering we're talking about.
Yeah, we certainly got into horror and stuff, but
yeah. Well, and I was about to bring up is that a lot of the stuff that I've been watching lately that's been really good has been a mix of like Korean, Argentinian, like just I've been getting into a bunch of like crazy foreign horror, and it's been really, really good.
Where you been watching it on?
You said porn horror, but I know you meant
foreign horror.
I got you. I was just like, my brain went straight to porn horror. What is that?
Horror?
Okay,
I mean, I guarantee that it exists somewhere. Yes,
I'm pretty sure it has happened. Children of the Corn.
I
mean, is a corn horror, right?
That's corn.
Well, I mean,
corn horror.
Well, I mean, technically, if
that's the origin of cornholio.
If you go back and read most of Stephen King's old stuff, there's some jiggy getting to it, right?
Oh yeah.
Which
don't ever go on a long trip listening to it on the
audiobook
radio, and the kids are in the car with you. Up, jump.
Right.
Nope. What was that? Nothing. Here, let
How
me go
did-
try
Dad,
to
how
find
did
it.
they
The
get out of
library,
the-
the library policeman. I mean,
The library policeman.
That was
Yeah,
Dad, how
bad.
did they
yeah.
get out of the sewers? Oh, well, they
Oh
bonded.
well, yeah.
How,
And then
how did they bond?
conveniently forgot about it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, kind of awkward, but yeah,
But
no.
that, see, I'm still a virgin. That didn't count.
Yeah, sure.
what do
There's
you
that
mean it
one
doesn't
time.
count?
Telling yourself that.
Colin is being
Yeah.
eaten by his background.
Yes, his hair is turned green. His part of his jacket as well.
It's almost like he's turning into Joker. His skin a little bit more paler, and his hair is
No,
green.
no, it's like I got that cheesy Green Lantern suit on.
There you go. But no, you asked what I've been watching it on. A mix of things. Shutter has been a pretty good resource for a while, but a lot of that Shutter stuff also shows up on Prime through AMC Plus, I think.
AMC,
So-
and then Tubi has a lot of horror, a lot of
Yeah.
Spanish horror, and a lot of. I love when they do their Hammer festivals.
Yeah, the Hammer
'Cause
stuff's
I've-
great.
Hammer
I
horror
binged
series.
through. Yeah, I mean, well, there was Hammer, and then there was for a while they were lost the rights to certain things. So this other company, it's not American International, but something international. They came in and started doing some movies with like Vincent Price and all the same actors, and then Hammer got their rights back, and then they took it over. So there's this period where it's not the same people doing it, but you can't tell because
Mhm.
whoever this other company was knew, they just knew what to do with it. And trying to remember Witch Hunter General and some of the other ones that were like, wow, that is a really tough Vince Price movie. But I went back and watched all of the Universal. I watched some of the Asian horror on some of the streaming. I got tired of fighting. What is it? It's Screen TV or whatever that is. They show some old horror TV shows, and they show horror movies, but if you don't buy the streaming service, you get eat up by commercials like
Yes, that's
Yeah.
every 10 minutes, and you're like, I can't get into this because, and it's the first one will pop up and go, one of two commercials. Oh, okay, I can handle that. 5 of 9. What? And then it'll end at 5, bring you back, and then take you right back into the commercial, and you get the rest of the 9. And you're like, okay, I've
Well,
got
that's-
this
that's
movie
annoying
somewhere in the
too,
other room.
because
I can go get it.
you lose yourself out of the immersion. It'd be like
Yes.
you're
the
watching
time.
something, and then you're at this point that there's a jump scare or something that's going to happen, and you get pulled out of the movie, and it completely loses its effect of what it's supposed to do to bring you
And
in.
then rewinds 10 seconds and gives you exactly what
It
you
gives
just
you
looked at.
yeah. At least you
Yeah.
don't feel like you missed something because it backtracks and gives you or almost right where it left off. It starts right back up.
Yeah. But imagine being in the middle of a jump scare and then having to come back up and going back into the same jump scare.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Doesn't
at that point you're like, okay, no effect. Can we move on to the next big jump scare, please?
The one movie that I like that sticks out to me for foreign horror, of course, is going to be The Host.
Okay.
The one with the dad who like tries to go rescue his daughter from this monster from the abyss and everything, and it's been a long time since I've watched it. It was one of the ones.
Oh,
I
it's
wanted to
good. It
watch.
was about
yeah.
pollution, and then they were like the same studio did a couple of other films, kind of like it, the Lake Monster and some of the
Mhm.
other ones.
Well, and it was cool
Um,
because it was the first like kaiju movie we had at the time in a while, kind of thing. Because it was a bigger creature. It wasn't like something small. I mean, it was almost on the level of Relic a little bit with how big that thing was.
Right, but in Relic, when he transformed into it, it wasn't gradual. He was there by the time we really figure out he's killing everybody in the museum. In that, we see it in different stages because it was kind of like how they did with Godzilla,
Shin Godzilla.
Shin
Yeah.
Godzilla.
Whereas the creature when the Host was already like it was.
Yeah.
The whole
Well,
thing.
no. Remember, they show two guys fishing at the beginning.
Yes.
and
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
pulls up something, and then later on we see a fishing boat on the river trying to deal with something, and it's telling you something's coming. Well, it takes a bit for you to realize it's the same thing, and I actually thought for a while it was going to be a bunch of little creatures that were running around, and
Yeah. Oh, it's one of those
what was it? The
definitely.
monster, and another one was called the monster in the tunnel, and it was this creature that was eating everybody.
Mhm.
And when they go down to figure out who it is, and the city, the military, they go down there, you realize it's not a monster. It has a baby, but the military steals the baby so they can make a display of it.
Excuse me, sir. Monsters can have babies too.
I know. And
Yeah.
so it was
Moms can be
angry. So
monsters and monsters
when it
can be
was
moms.
attacking, it wanted its baby back, but it was eating all the garbage that we've been dumping down this shaft for like decades. So in
Yeah.
the end, the humans are the monster. It's not, but it leads you there until a certain point when you realize who the real bad guys are and what it wants. But man, when it's angry, you get in the way, your food. And so there was a couple of characters I really liked who got killed, and I was like, man, I did not expect that. I kind of figured they were gonna make it through.
Well, that was the thing about the host that was great is the fact it was a single dad who was just like doing what everything he could to support his daughter, and then like his daughter gets kidnapped, and he's just like doing everything he can to save her. That was pretty awesome because he was the unlikely hero. But that's
Well,
the
so
first one.
his daughter was
Oh,
tough.
awesome! Yeah,
I was
yeah.
in love with her. I mean,
Mhm.
she was a great character. But Asian horror is, man. I mean, they do the stuff they do with like everyday things or sounds or the hint of something. It really can disturb you. I mean, some of them I've seen in my life are like, okay, I have to I have to stop for a bit. I got to go and do something else with my mind, and then I will come back and finish this because this is I don't want to be where I'm at. You know,
Mhm.
when
Well, now I
something
wonder.
is no, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, I wonder how much of that is also because you think about whenever Japanese horror first became a big thing in the States, right? It kind of redefined the way that I think the reason why it took off for so many people is that for regular modern audiences, it kind of redefined the idea of a ghost story for us, right?
Mhm.
Like it went
Mhm.
from, okay, all you got to do is find the remains, salt them, set them on fire, right? Put the spirit to rest, whatever, and then you're free. And like Japanese ghost stories were some of the first ones that I can recall people talking about where like there wasn't you weren't beating it,
No,
right?
no,
Like
you
No.
like
weren't
you
beating it.
it was just a force of nature that
Nature.
if
Yeah.
if you got caught in the whirlpool of like, you were done, right?
Mhm.
There was no escaping it. It was this you got into the orbit of this thing and you're done. And it was kind
And
of
you
it.
see that. Go ahead.
No,
I was
I
gonna
was
say
gonna
you.
say, and that was just a different kind of terror that we hadn't really seen a lot of up to that point, or at least again, not that I can think of many examples of people talking about before that.
Well, I mean, but then we've learned from that because you see, like, Smile is that horrible thing where that you could go all the way back to the Ring too, where the video where you can't defeat it, you have to pass it on.
Right.
That's how you survive. You've got to commit to killing somebody
Or
else.
like It Follows did it right as well, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
It
Similar thing.
Follows is another
Which
one. Yes.
which is kind of interesting because, like we have Lovecraft, right? For years and
Yep.
years and years.
Mhm.
And for whatever reason, Lovecraft and that maybe it's because cosmic horror is so hard to really nail down, right? And do a good job visually expressing that kind of terror. And so for whatever reason, it wasn't until we started getting these, Japanese ghost movies that all of a sudden it was like, okay, this feels like cosmic horror, right? This feels like that there are things that are just beyond our ability to control
Mhm.
that you have to either avoid or, you know, become a cult member of and hope it doesn't eat you whenever it's done, right? And it just
Yeah,
seemed
or
kind of
you escape, but you lose your sanity in the process.
right. And so that was always the kind of thing that interested me was the fact that it was like, it wasn't like it was a concept that was new. It was
Mhm.
just somehow or another they were able to bottle it right before it seemed like anybody else really I guess that's not the right way of putting it. They bottled it and made it accessible to a wider audience. And a lot of that maybe is just because culturally it's the way they are. It's something about their culture. It resonated with them on a wider level. And then once
Well,
it came over to this,
spirituality and ghosts and stains and um what's the word they use? That's part of their culture.
yeah,
They, you know, where here it depends on where you live. If it's part of your culture, it's just something you've read out of a book. Um,
Well, you
but
think about
also,
in Japan, like they have yokais, they have different certain types of entities and demons and things
and demons, yeah, and they have
that do
total
different
different.
things. Some of them are mischievous, some of them are dark and evil. We see a lot of that stuff play out in some of more modern horror stuff here that we just copy from that. But you also think of like how like the Middle East considers the jinn or genies different,
Yeah.
They're not, yeah,
how
they're
they're
not like we
perceived
would think of them. Yeah.
and how that they bind them and everything to try to get them away because they're ever living or whatever. They can't be killed. They just can be trapped and put away. Which is I guess the hint why the whole lamp and things. But it's really cool getting to see some of those things through the lens of the people that make these films that tell these stories that we just don't understand. Like,
yeah,
you get a little more understanding from it.
Well, a
like,
lot of it's folklore too. You know,
Yeah.
it's stuff that they've believed in and taught children. It was passed down from adult to child to adult to child. You know, you keep
Hmm.
because there are a lot of culture where the forests are dangerous. There are a lot
Yep.
of monsters and demons and spirits.
Hmm.
Like the people who die haunt a specific area. They roam the forest looking because they're in pain. They want to spread that
Torment
pain.
the other, yeah.
Um,
Well, you
but
think
then
about how many
in
battles
some
were fought over in those
well,
fought,
areas.
yeah.
Yeah.
so
But like,
and it,
but well, I was gonna say just benign, like in Asian, there can be a benign spirit who is insulted or you've desecrated a temple or a place that it where the culture, the people who grew up there would go in and they would leave sacrifices and make offerings, and then you come in and you mess that up, and well, then you get cursed with it, and then everybody who's associated with you gets cursed, or an area is cursed because some bad things kept happening there, and then each one feeds the next.
so so
So
on the level of that though, there's a great movie. It's a Korean horror movie called Exuma, Exhuma, Exuma. It stars I think it's the guy from Old Boy, if I'm right.
Okay.
But
the older
it
guy, the older actor.
yeah, yeah. And it plays kind of into that because I don't know if Koreans are really big into feng shui or something, but that's one of the main concepts in the movie. Is it's very heavy on Taoism. It's very heavy on feng shui to the point where that character who I swear it's the guy from Old Boy. I need to go and double check that, but his character, his whole job is to actually go around and uh kind of work with either businesses or rich families because like what you're saying, right? It's like grandma whenever she was buried, one of the kids was going to miss her, so he like stole her dentures or something out of the casket whenever they were doing the wake before they could bury her. And now the spirit is like reaching out from the afterlife and like causing the kid to have nightmares or seizures or whatever. And so his job is to go in and figure out, okay, like, was grandma buried in a place, where she was facing the right direction, that there's positive energy flow and all the rest of this. Okay, there is, then let's now exhume her, right? Let's dig her up, check her
And
remains and
properly, yeah.
see what's going on. And so it plays into a lot of that kind of lore where it's all about that. It's all about buried remains and energy flow and the effects that has. And it starts off on just a very human level, right? With family members being haunted by ancestors and all the rest of that. But then you get to the end of the movie, and there is a turn in terms of what is really happening that happens, and then that
Mhm.
movie gets nuts. And it's really interesting because it goes to it expands beyond its scope expands beyond just human to human interaction and kind of the energy flow between person to person, and it goes
Mhm.
to the country level, right? Like what happens whenever you disturb the the pattern of a country, and what kind of
The
effects does
natural
that have,
order.
and yeah,
Yeah.
and that kind of stuff. So it's really good. Very interesting movie. I don't know if
I,
there's
I think
a
I've
dub of it,
seen it,
but
but because it sounds familiar. Um,
does it have
and
an 8 foot tall samurai?
no, is that
Nope.
in
This
this?
is
Okay, then no, it's
yes.
not.
We talking about
Yeah,
Yes.
because there
Gant?
was another movie where there was a guy, he was going into businesses, helping them set up everything because the businesses wanted to have good luck, good energy. He would go into houses and he went in, and there was a rich person, a rich family, who tricked him into doing something that then made whatever the spirit was that was connected to them that was messing with started following him and messing his life up.
Hmm.
And even though he was preparing everything in his house the way he thought it was, nothing was working. And he had to go to somebody who had taught him. And then she was like, well, this is what's going on. She tries to help him. She gets killed. And in the end, he figures out what's going on. And but all he
Hmm.
does is he successfully restores his life to where it was at the beginning of the film. But you're like, okay, at what cost did this all happen? And you're like, and then he didn't get to get revenge on the family who screwed him over because it goes from them to all about his life,
Mhm.
and that movie reminded me of the movie Ghost Story because there are like very few American ghost stories that effectively either do when they're effective, they do it where you don't see what's going on, you feel it, you don't ever see the monster, you perceive what it is, and then they leave you kind of ambiguous. Was this a ghost story, was this on this person's head, and all that. But then we had movies like Ghost Story, which was about a spirit that could not rest, that sought revenge generationally against the people who had done the spirit wrong.
Mhm.
And so in the end, they had to figure that out, and they had to go. And it wasn't to bury the creature or to right a wrong or set the spirit free. Well, it was part of that, but it was to bring it to the forefront because this spirit couldn't rest because her body was buried in a car at the bottom of a lake. And the minute it gets pulled up by the police, and the spirit is released, the everybody knows what happened, and then the one last survivor comes up and tells the police what. Well, he kind of told the son of, there was a twins, and one of the twins gets killed, and his brother's trying to figure out what's going on. He goes home, and then his father dies. Well, he's about to be killed by her, but by revealing her to the police and the authorities and everybody knowing what happened to her, just as she's about to kill the guy, she fades into nothing. And that was what was holding her to the earth. Very similar movie. But then like Sixth Sense. And Sixth Sense has a lot of to owes a lot to Asian horror and that kind of horror movie where in those movies, like there was one movie where there's a cop, and I can't remember what it was called, and he was a detective and he had a partner and they were chasing down a serial killer, and the serial killer ended up being someone close to him that he would have never thought who it was. And even his young partner gets killed. And when he figures it out, there a 20-minute conversation between this cop and this serial killer as to what's going on. And he's like, you're not going to kill me because I give your life purpose. And he's like telling him, stop, I'm going to shoot you. Stop, I'm going to shoot you. And he goes, if you kill me, I'm going to haunt you, because you're all into these spirits. And he was just into the cop's head. so much. And at the end, you see him turn and walk back, and he looks back, and the cop is just sitting there holding the gun, and it ends. And you're like, did he just let a serial killer walk off because of his messed up mind, or did he shoot him? You know, I was like, wow, man, that blew my friggin' mind. I would have capped his butt in a heartbeat, but you know,
Yeah.
that is a psychological horror.
What you got one that you want to recommend here?
There's a couple actually. David's probably seen one of them, The Wailing.
Oh,
The
dude,
Wailing?
The Wailing is so good.
It's very good. Basically, a policeman in town, a bunch of people start getting sick, and then this cop decides he's going to try and figure out. But the more he investigates, the more it spreads, and then he figures out that his daughter's like a main target of it. A lot of twists and turns, and very, very down to earth, very grounded. You know, supernatural-esque horror. And then another one that I really liked, even though I don't like zombie movies, was Train to Busan.
Oh yeah, but
Yeah.
if you like that, there are two other movies you've got to watch. There's an animated prequel to it, which is the something in Saigon. I can't remember what it is. And then the sequel is called the Peninsula,
Okay.
and it's about what happens to the survivors after Train to Busan. And I know it's been dubbed now, but when I first watched it, they were all subtitled, and so I know the animated prequel is not subtitled. You have to watch it. It's not dubbed. You got to watch it in subtitle. But I heard Peninsula was now finally dubbed over. So
That's the thing about me. I love the sub movies. You know, I don't always worry about getting them or watching them when they're dubbed and stuff like that. I don't mind the subtitles. I've never really.
well, I'm blind, and I
Oh.
have to watch a TV that's across the room. So I got to sit on the edge of the bed or bring a chair to watch it. That bothers me. It takes me out of the film. And then you go, oh, damn it, I missed that. Let me rewind back to it. And by the time you've done that 4 or 5 times, you're like,
Yeah,
the
you
hell
missed
with this.
that.
I'll just figure it out by what they're doing in the movie. I don't need to know what.
To hell with you. Yeah, there you go. All right. I got
So
these.
Another good one was RAC. RAC. Where's
record the Spanish.
Yeah.
Oh, record.
Oh
yeah.
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 And what were they called here in America? They were called Record there because the first one was Record 2, but we had a different name for them here. And then what was great was the original films, Spanish films, went off in one direction, and the American ones went off into a total different direction.
right.
But
Is
they
that
elements from both.
Isn't that the what
films.
became the VHS?
Yeah, I was gonna say, is that what the VHS movies are now?
No,
VHS is a ripoff of them.
Yeah, and VHS is still going.
Yeah.
VHS is a bunch of found footage vinaigrettes that are surrounded by
Vinaigrettes?
vinegar.
Can I just put it on salad?
Get them in
Yes.
Olive Garden.
It scares the
God
shit out
damn
of
it.
you as you eat it.
Vinaigrette.
It's the stupid
What
French.
is the word? I know it's not vinaigrette. What is
Vignette.
it? Vignette.
Vignette.
Vignette. I got it. I got
First
it.
the French.
Not beignets.
Oh, I would love a beignet right now and some coffee.
No, it's not beignet. It's
but
vignette.
no, yeah, vignettes, and eat the opening and the ending ones are the wraparound story.
The
Okay.
framing
and-
device.
The last 4 of them have kind of bled into the next ones. There's a big overall story. Originally, they were just okay. Here we're going to show you these. Each one was different. The last couple of them they're telling a much bigger story. I haven't watched the newest one, but I've read about what happens in it. So, but Record was. I don't have my phone. It's charging. Look up what Record was here in America. Somebody's got to have a phone.
I'm scanning magic cards at the moment.
Oh, bless your heart.
Are you scanning magic cards so you can play them online?
No, I have no because they didn't work like that. They want all your money. So no, I have pre-con like pre-built decks, but I'm about to tear them all apart. But I want to keep a list of what they were. So
So you're making a inventory.
Yes.
Yeah, the record movies were the ones about the quarantine and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the reporters go in
Yeah.
with the emergency
I
cue.
think for the
And then all
American
the
version is called Record.
But
No, I
did
thought
it
it was
turn into
called
something
something
else?
because the original
Yeah.
title was REC.
Yeah, REC, which was record because it had the symbol
Short for
from
record.
the VHS.
Yeah.
Yeah. And ours was different. And one was a possession movie about demons, and the American one was about zombies, something from what is it? When you rabies and
Quarantine.
quarantine.
Yeah,
Yeah,
American
that's
one.
the
Yeah.
American ones. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, with the sister of Dexter was in, I think, the first one, right? Something like that.
Mhm.
She
Or
was
maybe I'm thinking of a different
the
one.
reporter. Was she the
Yeah.
reporter?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
so.
Well, one that I would mention if we're going to talk about like stuff like that, you can't go without saying 28 Days Later because it was definitely a British film dealing with zombies. And
Well, they weren't zombies.
well, no, they were
Let's say-
rage-filled monsters, but they were
Yeah.
they're not
What are they referred to
zombies.
now? What do they refer to now? They're called rage zombies, right?
Rage
Yes,
zombies. Yeah.
but that's
Everyone
because
just-
Americans started calling them that because zombies are old hat now, and Snyder made them running, jumping, and flying. And next thing you know, they're going to come in and be able to work for you in an office space.
Didn't you know?
just chain them
hold
to
on,
the
Dad.
Yeah.
desk.
No.
Didn't
hold
you
on.
know that,
Well, let's back up.
Snyder's going to be doing the Marvel Zombies movie?
Wait. Hold
The
on.
animated
Snyder,
movie. Yeah.
Snyder doesn't have to have them, serving and helping us. Shaun of the Dead already took care of that.
Well,
Right?
Shaun,
They're working
yeah,
in the grocery stores and they're
Which
on
is
our
another one.
TVs.
but that came out after the fact. I think so. He was borrowing
Zach-
from that.
Wait. Zack Snyder's Army of the Dead was well after Shaun of the Dead. What are you talking about?
Oh, you're
Well,
talking
Army
about
of-
Army of the Dead. I'm talking about. I thought
You're
you were
talking about his remake
Shaun
of
of the
Dawn?
Dead,
Remake
Are you
of
talking about-
Shaun of the
No,
Dead,
no,
yes,
Dawn
you're
of the Dead.
right.
where we got all the running, jumping. Okay,
Or,
but
Oh,
we
okay.
had what was that? Because Shaun of the Dead, they didn't have them working, did they? There was
Yeah, they did.
Bub.
At the
What was it?
at
It
the-
was one of
at
the
the very
zombie
end.
movies where the guy they can become pets. The guy takes one home and they become working in your
Oh
home.
yeah.
Well, his
What the hell
best friend.
At
He's
the
got a
end
collar.
of Shaun of the Dead, yeah, he had a collar on him and they were playing video games in the shed.
But
Yeah,
I think-
no,
but I
I
think-
got that. But there was
but
another movie.
There was another
before
one.
I know what
that.
you're
Yes.
talking about. I remember that.
Fido. It was
Fido.
called Fido.
Yes.
Fido's the one you're
Yes.
thinking about.
Yeah.
No,
Um,
but well, Shaun of the Dead would technically be one with Edgar Wright. So,
Yeah, but
what
what I'm saying is 28 Days Later gave us something more feasible and could happen
correct.
than
The rage
us
virus
having
from
having a dead coming back to life. But in that, if you could hold up in some place and 28 days later, they're going to die off. That was the whole point of the second movie was that they would go
They
through
had
and,
died
and they
off.
would they
The
had
plague was
died off.
gone.
Well, there were still a few of them that were found, but what we found out in 28 months later or whatever it was,
Weeks.
that there were carriers
yeah.
who could be carrying and look normal but still had the virus within them, and so reintroducing them into society was a much greater problem than the original movie, and if it hadn't been on an island, it would have spread worldwide, which is what you see in the second movie.
Mhm.
Once they
Yeah.
get in the helicopter and fly over to safety, you figure out, oh shit, now it's everywhere.
Yeah, it's in France. It's all over Europe.
Yeah.
The other thing too was it was definitely one of the movies that kind of I guess would have gave Robert or Kirkman the idea for a little bit of Walking Dead because it almost Rick's journey in the beginning is very similar to the main character, Cillian Murphy's character, and
Yes, yeah.
which is also an homage to Day of the Triffids.
Yeah.
So, but
Yeah. But that again happened around the world. Triffids had been used for their oil and become an
Yes.
industry. So they were out. When the Earth went through the asteroid field that burned everybody's retina, that was worldwide.
Oh, yeah,
only
no,
way
yeah,
you
you're
could have
right.
been rescued was that you were not exposed to their light. And so it wasn't just on England. I mean, in England,
Yeah, it was around the world. It was around the
worldwide,
world.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and if you could even go even further than that, or not further than that, but you could take a movie that actually copied that almost a little bit too, which was Night of the Comet, instead of them becoming
Well,
blind
yeah,
and
which was
zombies.
another. They were
Yeah.
zombie-esque as long as they had human blood. You know, they were
Yeah.
like vampires in a way. You know, as long as they had human blood, they could maintain their semblance until then. They eventually they still decayed and would become those ghouls.
Right. But but it was really nice getting to see a film where you really kind of got an aspect of society breaking down. You really fell for the main character in 28 Days Later, where he's trying to figure out what's going on. The pieces are there, but he can't comprehend what it is because of the fact that he's been in the hospital for so long. And then,
And there's no food, and
Yeah.
all you got to eat is junk food
or out of cans,
that
stuff that was
cause you,
preserved.
and then you got to crack. Can you imagine having that? Because all those sweet things give you this energy rush, and then you crash afterward.
Mhm.
You know,
Another
that was
one I
what was great was when they found the grocery store, and they found all that food that the units were still on, the refrigerating units, so nothing had spoiled. Man, I would have eaten like a king that there. You know,
made
I
me
would
a
have made sure
burger.
I shut the. I'd have made sure I shut the drop down gate before I did it.
The other movie I was going to mention too would be Audition, which is another
Oh yeah.
creepy horror, but it is I enjoyed that, the whole thing about a dad like going on a dating service and everything, and
Deeper,
then
deeper, 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 deeper.
meeting
You
this
know,
crazy psychotic woman.
I don't know if it's because I'd just become desensitized by the time I finally got around to that movie, but it didn't like shock me the way that but I had like I'd already seen like Ichi the Killer,
Yeah.
and like I know it's the same guy, right? It's Takashi Miike and all the rest of
Mhm.
that, but yeah, by the time I got around to Audition, it's like I had heard so much about it. It had been built up so much. I watched it and I was like, it was good, but
But
yeah, I think it
David,
got
you
overhyped
got to
for me.
set this up because at the time we didn't have a big following. We didn't have it wasn't really here in America. We had this was on first time I saw it was in the middle of the freaking night because I used to watch I think it was Friday nights on one of the it was either Skinamax
No, it was
or it was
international.
show
It was on the international channel probably because
and so I would watch it because every Friday night they would do two of them, and I got introduced to Asian horror, and so I'd finished watching the end of one movie, and then this thing came on, and I was like, "What is this?" He's setting him up. He's doing interviews with people, but it's really for a date. But then all of a sudden, you see the backstory, like the being
of the girl he's going to try
what.
to date
Well,
with the
yeah, and
bag
like
that moves in her
the
apartment.
bag, man, and then when she hits it to make it stop, and then you find out it was her uncle, right? And that whole ending, and his son when he's like going upstairs, and I'm like, because he finds his dad who's been,
Catatonic almost, man.
well, she hamstrung him. He can't walk or run.
Mm-hmm.
She just had been torturing him with the damn acupuncture. That was the first time I ever acupuncture as a torture device. And the son's going upstairs and she's up there, and I'm like screaming at the top of my lungs, "Don't go up there! Don't go up there!"
And the son
And
comes
then
to
they
save the
get
day.
into yeah, well, he goes upstairs and they get in. He gets into a knock drag out fight with this woman, and she's almost winning. And I
Oh
was
yeah.
like, "Oh, how is this friggin' movie going to end?" And then he finally doesn't. She fall down the stairs and it breaks her neck or something, or he stabs her. I don't remember.
I don't remember. Yeah, I think so. Or something like that. It's
But
been a
and I
while
was
since.
like, when it was over with, the guy did his talk about next week, and then he was all right. See y'all later. What And I clicked the TV off. And I was like, I don't know. Am I going to go to sleep tonight?
Why did I watch this? And I go on
Yeah.
these days. I go dating
And that
blind.
became my Friday nights, man. I was like, okay, I want to see every. Matter of fact, it was on that channel where I first saw the one we started this with, about the snails. The spy. It was called Spiral here in America, and it had it was dubbed when I got to see it, but it was still messed up. It still messed my head up. And I
Mhm.
watched so many of those movies on there. Um, I saw the very first. What was it? Um, it was ended up being remade here. It was the one with the ghosts that are stains, getting everybody to commit suicide online. I
What
saw
the
the original
Pulse. It's Pulse.
Huon? The
Pulse.
Pulse,
okay.
and then I saw the original Ring on there.
Go.
There was just a ton of them that later on I started watching them as they were being imported here.
Mhm.
And
Well,
then
that
we
was the
started
craze.
hiring their directors over to come over here and redo them or do
Mhm.
their a new Americanized horror movie. Um, that was my real first experience with it. But most of those horror movies I watched that were from Spain were like the zombies, the Something Dead. There were like 4 of them where they were
Yeah, all the
Aztecs.
The Mario Bava
Yeah,
and Argent. Well, that's the Italian stuff, right? Like
yeah, the Italian. I'm
Italian
sorry.
Italian is a whole other,
Whole other
thing
thing.
unto itself,
Well,
right? Like because Giallo movies were even before were like the proto slashers, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like that was the whole, you're watching everything from the perspective of the killer with the black gloves. And the thing that always kills me about Giallo movies is trying to figure them out is not worth your time, because the killer is going to be some guy that they ran into on the street during the first 5 minutes of the movie that you haven't seen since. And it turns out that that person is actually like the, third cousin brother who was sleeping with, the girlfriend of the main character who got killed, 30 minutes before, and all that. It's like it makes no sense, but they're hilarious and fantastic.
what's the one where it ends with they're fighting on the rooftop and the one guy that you thought was the hero is taking on the villain who was impersonating to be somebody else trying to kill a woman. He bursts out of the door and they get into a fight and he gets knocked out and he's about to kill the woman and he slips and he falls off of the roof of the building and he that's how the villain dies. And then the cop who you thought was going to be the hero, he had come in and then got ambushed by the guy and he gutted him. I was like, what? Some of those movies, yeah, they didn't make any sense. But again, serial killers are most commonly people you meet in a frigging grocery store or at a gas station or somewhere that you just either
you just happen to be at the wrong place at the wrong time.
well that or you said something or did something that perked their interest in you.
Yeah. Well, and that's what,
Um,
and that's where Giallo movies definitely, for all their weirdness, definitely have a little bit more of a grounding in like reality than what, say, modern slashers are with like Michael Myers and Jason and all that is, right? It's
Mhm.
like it really is kind of horrifying when you really think about it. Of, the killer is just some random Joe, just some random person that you barely even thought about, and suddenly it turns out they've been stalking you for, months and you didn't even know, kind of deal. So yeah, like all those are great. I guess the one thing I wanted to jump in on is when it comes to zombie movies, if you haven't seen One Cut of the Dead, which is a Japanese movie, that's fantastic.
what is it?
It's called
One,
One Cut of the Dead. The concept of it is that it is a single following solid shot, right? It is a continual shot of a zombie movie, right? It's the whole what was it, 1913 or whatever that movie was, where it was it's trying to be shot in such a way that it
Well,
looks
yeah,
like
the
it doesn't cut away.
1917. It
Yeah, I'm
was
sorry,
the World War One
1917.
movie.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
so
I've
it's
heard
it's
about it.
doing similar things to that, and it seems like it's been getting a lot more love lately. Like I saw it, I want to say 2 years ago, but I've been seeing more people talking about it, and it's up on Amazon and stuff like and all that right now. And it's really really good. It's not what it appears to be at first, but it's an excellent little fun zombie movie to watch.
I
Um,
watched. Have you seen No One Gets Out Alive?
Yes.
Maybe.
I'm hoping I've got the right. It's the one with the alien where the everybody in the town is being because there's 2 movies with very similar name and I don't remember which one is which, but they're in this. It's a woman who's in you. starts off with an everyday family and everything. There's nothing going on except you. She notices that there's just something slightly off with some of her neighbors or friends. She goes to bed. It's a what do you call it when the aliens take you? What is that called?
Abduction.
Abducted.
Abduction. And then she kind of wakes up with that feeling of falling to the bed, and she's like, can't tell anybody. And then it happens again, and then finally she figures out what's going on, is able to break free, and then it's her surviving, trying to warn everybody, and then some of the people she warns have been replaced. It ends up being an invasion movie, but
Body snatchers kind of thing.
it's got a really good ending. And I'm trying to remember the actress who's in. I keep thinking she's the one who played what is his name? Golly, I hate when my brain does this. The comedian who did Full House, not Full House, Home Improvements, and
Tim Allen.
Yeah.
Tim Allen. His daughter in the series I'm trying to remember, where he owns the bait shop, the tackle and bait shop with his partner.
Oh, the second show he had.
Still
Yeah,
standing.
it's not Who's the Boss. Is it still? No, it's
No,
not
it's not
still
the
standing.
boss. No, it's
Still standing.
still
Is it
standing.
still standing?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
well,
it went away.
the military daughter, his daughter who goes off and joins the military, that actress looks a lot like her and sounds a lot like her. So I think that's her. I was not expecting what that movie was, and it actually was pretty good. But again, it's one of those movies where don't watch before you got to go to sleep. You know, you're going to turn the TV off. I'm going to keep that light on, and you realize if that happened, and because it happens within a neighborhood, you know, there's nothing there to protect you. So I was really surprised at that one.
So like Kronos, Del Toro's first
Del
like,
Toro,
one of
which was
He- which
that
he
was
did-
a
which was-
Spanish film.
yeah, it was a Spanish film.
Yeah.
So I mean definitely that's pretty good one right there.
That was my first real introduction to Ron Perlman when I first saw that.
Outside of when he was in Beauty and the Beast.
Beauty and the Beast, yeah, because you know I never knew who he was in that. I didn't remember who he looked like. I know that I love Beauty and the Beast, though, you know, but I didn't know what Ron Perlman really looked like in that. I'd probably seen him in a few other movies where he played the heavy, the bad guy, working for a gangster, he was a bad cop, you know. There were
Mhm.
so many actors who started out that way and later went on. I mean, Lethal Weapon, Danny Glover played bad cops in movies before he became a good guy in his films, you know.
I have one Spanish one that I want to mention. It's more of on the lighter side. It's called Poseso, Poseso, and it's all done in claymation. And it's a possession exorcism movie, but there are a few genuinely decent scary moments in it, but it's also just like 90 minutes of great fun.
Mhm.
It's just he's the son of a
Well, we'll wait till he comes back.
Son of a
Call to David. So when he comes back, you say, "Man, that was really good." What's the name of the game in the movie again?
Poseso.
So you ended right at son of a. I mean,
Yeah.
it was a perfect cut. You're like,
just cut
son of
right
a-
there. Son of
and
a
done.
It's like Dylan, you know, it's Arnold coming in there to meet
Son of a bullfighter, and his mother was a like a
you
dancer.
son of a
The tap dancing, like a flamenco dancer,
flamenco dancer, yeah.
and all the strange stuff that eventually happens, and then they call in these priests, and then it's just oh, it is so good. It is so much fun.
There was an old movie, and it was a Spanish movie, and you could tell it was dubbed. It was either French or Spanish, and it was about an artist who was a vampire, and he was going around and he would make this beautiful artwork, but he was killing all the girls he was doing images of, and he would use their blood and the paint and all this other stuff, and it was about the young guy who dated one of the women he killed, and they worked at a bar. She was a dancer, and then the old gentleman who knew what vampires were, but was telling the lore, but everybody thought he was crazy, and then the cops who were trying to chase him. And then for a while, it's this friggin' serial killer movie. You don't know he's a vampire until they finally catch him, and he goes, and he's got the fangs, and he jumps out the damn window, and I go, "So it's a freaking vampire movie." And then they're chasing him through the town. Then he goes underground, and they eventually, I don't remember how it kills, but I know the young man whose girlfriend got killed. He's the one who kills him, and he stabs him with a big wooden stake, but it's not like a stake; it's something he breaks off, and they get into a fight. He kills him, and it that movie came out the same time as there was a comedic vampire movie called My Uncle's a Vampire, but I think that was a Roger Corman movie.
Probably.
And they were
Sounds
very
like a Corman
similar,
movie.
but yeah.
When
Innocent
Okay.
Blood, Dad.
Hey,
So-
I love that movie. There is nothing wrong with a little
No, no,
vampire
no.
action.
No. You hated that movie until like that one
I-
scene with her. That's about it.
Yeah, I was like, this is stupid. I now look, there is vampires turning into ash that really work, and that worked in that. I loved. They look like cigarettes burning down, and you could just grab their arm and shake it, and it would drop off. And then there is the remake of Salem's Lot with Rob Lowe,
Yes.
where they turned into dust. It looked like sawdust from a workshop, and I hate that effect. Now, I liked Innocent Blood. I liked the way they died as vampires. I love, what is it, Frank? What is his name? Lioja, the guy who played the mobster, who got bit and turned into a vampire. I like the fact that when she would drink the blood, she would kill whoever she drank because she never wanted to leave a trail. She never wanted any other vampires to come in, and then it gets screwed up, and one of them gets away, and it's the mob. But just certain things were like, it's a freaking vampire love story. And then when she's like, I promise, when she's all on all fours, butt naked, and she's handcuffed behind, and she goes, "You can handcuff me if you're frightened." So he handcuffs her, and then they make love, and I'm like, dude, come on. That is stupid. She could snap out of them friggin' handcuffs in a heartbeat. I thought, if she was really a vampire, she'd have killed him, just as he popped his O. But at one point, remember, she snaps him and then slams him on the ground and gets on top. And I'm like, whoa, hands. What the hell did I bring y'all to?
Oh, come on, Dad. This movie came out when I was like 18. So
When did it come out? Look it up. Because there were a few movies that surprised me, and I was like trying to put hands over, and all I got was that hand. Get your hands out of the way, Gus. I was trying to watch this.
1992. Innocent Blood, right?
Oh no,
Yeah.
that I was. Yeah, I was. Oh no, I was not 18. I was 11. We went and saw that in theaters too.
Yep. And I went because I thought it was just going to be a cool vampire movie, and then boom, turns into softcore. About 3/4 of the way through it, and then goes right back to a mobster movie where the mobsters are the vampires and the cop is trying to kill him, and then she ends up having to come in and save him because remember he lets her go, tells her to leave. If I see you again, I will kill you. And
I thought that movie came out. I thought that movie came out so much later.
And then you've got this poor cop who's going to go up against vampires who are, bullets do not affect him, and he's yet to go to a church to get holy water. He's not made any stake. All the typical things you're going to want to bring with you. I would have went and got me a crossbow that fired some heavy.
He didn't have the Lost Boys montage.
He didn't have anything.
Where they
and then she has to come in and
garlic
save him.
and holy water, going to the church and like while they're having a blessing or whatever, and he's like,
but it had all the classic. These were real mobster actors that were in like Oscar with Stallone. They were in the Casino with come on, Robert. I was going to say Robert Duvall, but Robert De Niro. These were people that you had seen in mobster movies for like 10 years, and all of a sudden they're vampires. And not Robert, Don Rickles is the chief lawyer for the head mobster, and he gets turned, and so here's you doing his Don Rickles satire stuff and his personal attacks on people, and he's like, all of a sudden you see his skin becomes pale and the blood lines of the veins in his, and then he kills his wife.
Yeah.
It was like,
Even though that
dude,
wasn't a
man,
foreign movie, though, but it seemed like the way it was directed was it seemed like a foreign film.
yeah, no, yeah, but the actress was a famous.
Yeah, she was foreign.
She was from I think she was, oh, I can't remember what movies I've seen her in, but she was a foreign actress who was trying to make it in the US. And no, I'm not a bad dad. Maybe.
No one said that ever.
No, but there are people out there watching us thinking it.
You'll
My
be fine.
mom took me to go see The Exorcist when I was like 11, so it
So
runs
see,
in the
it just
family.
yeah, I was about to say it's a familial thing.
Yeah.
I guess before we get to the end of things, two more quick foreign horror movies that are definitely worth the check out. So we were talking about Spanish ones a moment ago. I watched an Argentinian horror movie called When Evil Lurks, or
Okay.
Where Evil Lurks. It's
I
a
think it's
W.
Where Evil Lurks,
Where
isn't
evil
it?
lurks.
Is it?
Because that sounds very familiar.
No, it's When Evil Lurks. And it's a very, like, you see the poster or the thing for this movie, and it will immediately catch your eye because it's all a red background. It's completely silhouetted in the front, and you just see someone kneeling in a field holding an axe with a blade pointed at their face. So it will immediately catch your eye, kind of
So
deal.
is that a newer film?
Yes.
It came out in
Last
23.
year.
Yeah.
Okay. So
So-
because I believe there's an older film with the same name, a similar name.
It might be.
Because I was
but-
like, I don't remember that poster at all.
But this movie was really it's nuts. It's a possession movie, but the rules are completely different. And they don't explain it, but the church is like gone. So it's all of these it's all these like poor people living on someone else's land trying to deal with this person who's become possessed. And there's very specific rules. Like there's 7 rules that you have to follow when dealing with these possessed people, because what it is the demons trying to basically come out of the person, right? They're using this person's flesh as a gateway into our world. And so there's very specific people that have very specific means of dealing with it. And until one of those people, like basically an exorcist, is able to show up there and deal with this person, there are certain things are about to start getting weird all around you as this thing starts like gathering its power, right? As it starts coming closer to the world. And so it starts affecting things everywhere around, and it starts driving different people crazy. It starts taking over people's minds. It is not for the faint of heart. It has got some really gnarly stuff in it. Like the whole concept of it is that there's this guy and his brother who find out that there's a person on the land that they live near.
Oh, wait a minute. No. Was there a that each of one of the farms that live in there are a symbol on the ground, and they have a guy who is in a barn chained, and they've been sacrificing strangers in the town to him, because it's the same story. And then a brother comes back from the war, and him and his brother are talking. They don't get along with his dad, and then the guy storms off and goes to work for one of the farmers, and he never is found again. So the brother starts going up against people, and there you think that it's just kind of a redneck story. You don't know. You think maybe they killed him, and then it turns, and you find out that the people he went to work for are old, because the Nazis uncovered a spirit thing. Then they were able to bind it, and then they broke up the binding things and put it. When they came to America, they bought farms from people, and then said, we're paying for your farm, we're covering everything, but you have one job: you need to make sure nobody ever finds this. And you find out that every farm that agreed to that are old. They are like from World War One, just before World War Two. And one of the guys who was a Nazi, he was possessed, and they have him. He came looking for him, and it took a bunch of people in the community to get him, bind him, and trap him. But they can't kill him. He can't be killed. And if you sacrifice a soul, a life to him, and he doesn't, it's not like a transfer of soul. He has to eat you physically. He So he's there. The brother was going to be sacrificed to him, but there's something about the brother which he figures out as he's about to eat him. He goes, "You're poison to me. I don't know what is wrong with you." So the other brother comes looking for him, and the brother who is the prisoner is Firefly from The Flash. He was the one with he was the villain in the third Blade movie. He was Dracula in the third Blade movie. It's that actor. So the other brother comes looking for him. They say, "Oh, we haven't seen him." He becomes infatuated with the daughter, even though she's like 200 years or whatever years old, and over 100 years old. And he starts finding parts of his brother's clothes. He figures out that they buried his pack that he had taken off with him, and he's like trying to figure out what's going on. Then they trap him and make him a prisoner. They try to sacrifice him, but the demon won't touch him either. And so they're going to keep him there to work the farm as a slave, or they're going to kill him. And the girl tries to help him escape. He goes into the barn to figure out what's going on, meets the demon. The demon taunts him, and then it says, "I will kill your brother if you do not free me." Well, he says no. The farmers come up, hit him in the head, and they've got him chained up in this metal container. And that's how they do it. They have to torture you to build up part of your energy, and they slash you. They cut on your back and everything, on your chest, your face. Well, he's like that. The girl goes, "I'm tired of this. I can't live like this anymore. I'll do whatever I can to help you." And he goes, "Will you go away with me when this is over?" And she's like, "Yeah." Well, he goes, "Do it. Cut me up." And you see the demon start sniffing the blood, and he doesn't realize who it is yet. And so he comes to him to try to, they unchain him and let him to go feed, and he realizes who it is. And he flees back to try to get to the brother. And the two brothers are free, and they fight him. And there's something about their heritage, their bloodline, that this thing is afraid of, and they kill him in the end. But then it sets up a much grander story where they are part of a much larger war, and that there are other of these things out there. And man, I was like, okay, I thought it was just going to be this little Saturday morning horror thing. And it was, you ever see those movies where it just is much better than you thought it was going to be, or it deserves to be? There was another one.
That's definitely not what David was talking about.
I know. That's a very interesting sounding movie that you just told us the entire plot summary of. That is not the one I'm talking about.
Okay. Okay.
It's fine. It's fine. I was like, okay, we have pulled the ripcord and he is away.
Yeah,
just watching you cruise out there, just doing your loopy loops and stuff. And you're
I told you the story. I wasn't doing
pictures in the sky and all that. Yes. So that sounds like a really interesting movie, but no, that is not even close to what this movie was.
Yeah.
It's literally just a couple of brothers who find out that a person on their land is possessed. But the Exorcist.
No, okay, so that's a little bit like it, but keep going.
But hold on. But the Exorcist that's supposed to come and deal with it hasn't shown up, and they find out that the authorities in the area are basically don't care, and they're not they don't they don't care about what's going on. It took them months and months and months to even submit like the paperwork for this exorcist to show up. And so the brothers decide, along with the person who owns the land that all of them are living on, that they're just going to go deal with this themselves. And naturally, it goes horribly wrong. And then whenever the brothers realize that it's gone horribly wrong, they're like, okay, we need to get out of this town because it's about to get really, really bad. And so then the rest of the movie is about them trying to gather up their family and get the heck out of Dodge
And everything
before
goes wrong. Yeah.
all of this goes sideways. And yeah, it none of it works. And they just start getting picked off one by one by all this nonsense that's going on until finally they're like, okay, we can't escape. We have to go deal with this evil thing and go finally put it to rest or you know or do something about it because this is going to keep chasing us. And it is a wild movie. Wild. I mean, again, it's one of those movies where it's not happy. It is not a good ending to this movie. I'm just going to give you that right out front because it's like, okay, you know,
It's got a peak ending.
they absolutely won't kill this character, and then you just watch them get mauled by a dog, and then you're like, okay, like this person's probably safe. And then there's a scene where, you know, someone's walking along the road, dragging them along, eating their brains clean out of their head. It's like, it's a wild movie. It is a wild, wild movie, but it was really, really good. And I think it was just because it's again kind of like with that Exuma movie. It's just it's a different um it's just a different, you know, style than
Very
what,
different
you know,
style of
we've kind
horror.
of yeah, than
Yeah.
what we've kind of become accustomed
Watch out in
to.
a minute.
And seeing it's got just a different focus, right? It's got a different lens that it's
Mhm.
looking at the world through, and it makes it really, really interesting. But yeah, it's
And
so
is it American?
No,
no,
it's
it's
foreign.
Argentinian.
Yeah.
Argentinian?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then yeah.
It's how like when you don't do the proper process for removing an evil spirit and how it can put a curse on you and make everything that you do or everything that you do just exacerbates it or make it worse than what it should have been or had it, sure it should have
I
been.
mean, it's like trying to use a crucifix against a vampire when you have no faith. You know, you might know the ritual, you might know
Or
what to do,
or you
but if you don't
you're holding
believe in what
a,
you're
a
doing,
cross against a person that may be Buddhist or some other religion, and you put up a cross that's Christianity, and they don't have any kind of look, man. I don't believe any of all that stuff. It doesn't have any power over me
Well,
because,
that's you were talking
That one
about
guy
we
in
were
the
talking
mummy.
well no,
huh?
we were talking about yeah, the guy who went through all the different but before that
Yeah.
there's a horror a Hammer we were talking about Hammer earlier and there's a Hammer movie. It's one of the Dracula movies that actually the main character is an atheist. And so he's an atheist having to fight Dracula, but because he doesn't have any of that beliefs, you know, going into the church or holding up a crucifix and all those things, because doesn't have faith, he does not have the faith in the items.
isn't that
It has
Brides
no
of
effect.
Dracula?
It might
Was it
be.
Brides of Dracula?
It's one of the first two or three
Yeah.
of it. It doesn't have Peter Cushing in it, so it's after Peter Cushing is no longer Van Helsing and his character is kind of out of the
Yeah,
picture.
because
But it's
there's
still
Dracula with Peter
Christopher.
Cushing, and then there's this next one, which is um, where Brides of Dracula isn't about Dracula. It's in the same area, but it's a count, and he's coming down and he's taking the women, and he's biting them and turning them into
Yes.
vampire, and he's sending them out to go bring people to feed him. But then the second movie had Peter Cushing in it, but it was the actual ending of the first Dracula film, and he's never in it again until later when his ancestors in one of the films. But that's neither here nor there.
Yeah. Also, Peter Cushing, fantastic Dr. Frankenstein.
One of the best, you know, took it way away from
Very different.
very from Shelley stuff.
He is psychotic, but it is just so much fun watching Peter Cushing be a
So
absolutely
he's the really the
madman.
monster. He's the monster
Yeah, he's really the monster.
story.
Yeah. I would bring up another film real quick before we start wrapping. Brotherhood of the Wolf was foreign film that had very much horror elements in it, especially when you're dealing with the beast and stuff that was going on and the intrigue of.
But it's really not. It's about it's about hierarchy. It's all politically motivated, and it's all
Correct,
about
right.
politics
But
and
remember,
stuff.
it was posed
But
as a horror film. when it
horror
was-
movie. That's right.
Yeah.
It was. But really, it's about a creature who gets tortured into becoming something, very much
Something
like
else,
the Hound
yeah.
of the Baskervilles.
Mhm.
where it was a dog that had been starved and beaten, then would get let loose to
Yeah.
hunt somebody down. So, yeah, I mean, each genre, each nation gave us something added to horror. You know, a great director comes in, they build upon something that somebody else is going to go, hey, I like that. I'm going to bring something like that too. Um, hell, even Roger Corman did it, and he had some of the most schlocky stuff out there. But you see it later on in other films. You know,
Hmm.
people who were inspired by what he did. Um, you know, everybody has their own likes and dislikes for as far as horror movies. You know what they prefer. Um, and I think it kind of goes through genres because we had a period in the 70s where everything was about demons and exorcists and the omen and all of these other, then it became more technical and we had like Demon Seed and everything where it was man against machine horror, and then um, we started getting the monsters again, and then we got the Asian influences and other things like that. So um, there's something out there for everybody, you know, to enjoy.
Hmm. All right, guys, you got anything else real quick before we go?
No?
No.
All right, everyone, we hope you enjoyed this discussion about foreign horror. If there's ones that we didn't cover, I'm pretty sure there's a lot of them. Put them down below. List some of your favorites, Maybe we'll come back around to this at another later date. But I really did enjoy getting everyone back together again to do a normal episode and stuff. But stay tuned for next week's episode. I will post about it later on this week to let you know what we're going to be talking about. So, in the meantime, everyone have a great and wonderful weekend. We'll catch you later.